Hello and welcome to the trash, and my top 4 has been cracked, so let's get on into this episode of Tough as Nails. And it was a sad day. It was a very sad episode, mainly for my top 4 because one of the people in my top 4 has been eliminated, which I did not expect. Obviously, this is probably the biggest robbery on the season so far. But let's get into discussing the episode here. Let's start from the beginning of the episode. So the episode starts off with the aftermath of the last overtime, with Sally getting eliminated, and Sally saying that she's confident that Savage Crew will win more money. And I came into this thinking that Dirty Hands has this. Dirty Hands, all they have to do is just take Angel's leadership. Angel's a great team leader, and so is Liz, so is Zeus, I guess. But when you have all those, team leader personalities clashing together, it can be a bit of a mess. And that's kind of what we saw happen on this episode, with Zeus and Liz arguing, Angel arguing, even Freight Train and Arida did their fair share of arguing. I mean, Savage Crew just worked a lot more cohesively this episode, and I think that's probably what gave them the win. Now, mind you, both teams were very much after each other. Both teams didn't have the greatest teamwork, but Savage Crew was able to pull it together. Dirty Hands just wasn't able to look at their minute detail that they missed. They missed a very, very small detail that really could have been fixed if they were working together cohesively. I haven't even gone over what the team challenge was yet. They had to paint over a canvas that had card drawings on it to get ready for some new artwork. Some of them had to use a scissor lift to get high enough to paint over the card drawings that were located at the top of the wall. The crew bosses were Swifty and Arida. It was a close race. I'm not going to say that Savage Crew completely dominated the challenge, because they didn't. No, it was very close. It was a very close race. And Savage Crew just got it done quicker than Dirty Hands was able to get it done. That's really just all it came down to, which is another $12,000 for Savage Crew. Alright, so I guess we'll get into the individual competition now. They are split up into pairs to clean windows on a skyscraper. And the pair that finishes last had to go into overtime. Of course, there was no overtime this episode. So the teams were as follows. There was Scott and Meryl, which I think is a pretty stacked team. Liz and Zeus, which I think is another pretty stacked team. Arida and Freight Train, and Swifty and Sarah. Now, I knew if the competition had played out the way it was gonna play out, then I think it probably would have came down to Arida and Freight Train and Swifty and Sarah as the two that could have possibly gone into overtime. We could have been looking at another overtime scenario for Freight Train. We could have been looking at another overtime scenario for Swifty. However, I think in both of those scenarios, it would have been Arida or Sarah to go. That's just my opinion. Scott even was freaking out over the heights, and they even drew back to Murph in Season 1, his fear of heights, comparing Scott to a former winner. That's definitely something to watch out for. Freight Train also expressed his fear of heights, and Swifty was never able to really get his feet planted, so it was probably not going to end well for him if Freight Train wasn't medically evacuated. So yeah, it probably would have been Swifty and Sarah going into overtime, with maybe Swifty pulling out the win and Sarah getting punched out. But that's just up in the air at this point. And now we get into Freight Train's troubles with this competition. So, as Freight Train was cleaning the windows, he really just couldn't get it done. I think he got maybe one window done, and then he started saying, I can't hold myself, and he starts get exhausted up there. The paramedics come by, and he needs medical attention. Sally even gets in and goes into nurse mode. And I think it was a very, very sad moment when Freight Train had to be carried off and Arida had to punch out for him. It's actually unclear as to whether or not he'll be able to return for the team competitions, which I'm hoping he will be. I'm hoping Dirty Hands does not come down to 4 people: Arida, Zeus, Liz, and Angel. I mean, that's a pretty stacked team. It was a stacked team before, but I think Freight Train should really come back, because a 4-person team just would not feel right. I know I said that about the 5-person teams after Tara got eliminated and Mikey got disqualified, but if you make that number even lower and take it down to 4, they're such an underdog team at that point that I would actually start to root for Dirty Hands simply because they're outnumbered. They've lost 2 team members for medical reasons if Freight Train doesn't come back. Savage Crew lost 1 member, but that's because that one guy got disqualified for breaking a rule off camera. Freight Train's elimination this episode was the biggest robbery of the season. Mark my words, I don't think there will be a bigger robbery than that one. He was in such a good position to make it to the finals and win it all. He was in such a good position to win that individual competition. Dirty Hands was such a stacked team that they were probably going to win the team competition anyway. Freight Train was in such a good position. Now, mind you, there were some robberies early on in the season. Tara, she had to be medically disqualified because of her hand, but that's something she knew was going to, at least bother her a little bit. Freight Train had no idea this was coming. Mikey, obviously, he got disqualified, but that's his own fault for breaking a rule. How severe is that rule? We don't know. We don't know what he did to get disqualified, but Mikey has been disqualified. That's kind of his own fault. Freight Train, this isn't his fault. He didn't see this coming. Such a big robbery for Freight Train. Alright, you guys know what time it is. It's time to get into my updated rankings. Let's go. Alright, obviously same Tara, Mikey, Angel, Selly, and now Freight Train. Sadly. But now it's time to get into my updated player rankings for people who are still in the individual competition. So, let's get into it. At number 7, I have Sarah Burkett. Now, she's the least likely in my eyes of the people who are still in the game. And she's always kind of been on the bottom of this list. I mean, she's someone I think might make the finals. That's probably the kind of vibe I'm getting from her. But it doesn't seem like she's winner material. I don't know. Same thing with Arida, kinda, but Arida has that sort of story where she had to punch out for Freight Train. You know, they could be setting her up for a win. Definitely more so than Sarah Burkett. Next up, we have Swifty. Swifty in at number 5. Now, the interchangeable top 4 I had. You guys know this, my interchangeable top 4. It's been cracked. Freight Train's gone. He's out of it. So now it's an interchangeable top 5, because I moved 2 people into my interchangeable picks. Swifty and Meryl are the 2 people I moved in there. Swifty's in at number 5. He could be number 4. He could be number 3. But I just decided to only have Swifty at number 5. I decided Meryl at number 4 because she's kind of getting a neutral edit. You know, she's a beast physically, but I think out of all the people in my interchangeable top 5, she's probably the most neutral. So I just decided to put her in the neutral position of 4th place. And at number 3, I have Zeus. Now, Zeus got a lot of negativity this episode. He really was shown to be more of a controlling guy on Dirty Hands. But they gave him some redeemable qualities. His conversation with Liz afterwards really showed him in a positive light. They're trying to give him some redeemable qualities. So that kind of tells me maybe he makes the finals. I don't know if he wins, per se. I'm a lot less confident on him winning than I was in my first rankings, that's for sure. So Zeus, I have him in at number 3. And now, at number 2, I have Liz Knuckles. She could be number 1. I don't know. With my top 2, they're basically just, why can't they both be number 1? That's my thing. Liz in at number 2, really not much through any fault of her own. It's basically just because Scott, I moved up to number 1. I moved Scott to number 1 because the main thing with me is the heroic edit he's been getting. Obviously he's a great guy. I mean, no one's denying that, but he's been given such a heroic edit. Camera's on this guy. He's killing it this season. He's beasting it out. How can you not like Scott? Scott's gonna go to the end. I mean, I'm pretty sure of that. I don't see Scott leaving anytime soon. He was compared to Murph in the individual competition, which Murph was the winner of last season, so I don't know. It could be something there. There could be something they're hiding from. I could be reading way too much into this. But Scott Henry, I have at number 1. He's a legend. He's a beast. Go Scott Henry. By far has the most support in my comment section for sure. And so there you go. There's my updated rankings. This will turn into a top 6 after next episode. So it'll be a mid-season ranking by then. That's interesting. I might just do an entire video on that, and I might make an episode review separate. Well, we don't know. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out when we meet again next week after the next episode of Tough as Nails. See you later. A goodbye.